welcome to the latest episode of Millennial Money. My name's Lauren and I work for an online personal finance website called Money to the Masses, and we cover a host of investing and personal finance topics over on our website, moneytothemasses.com. So in this week's Millennial Money episode, I'm going to be sharing 5 things that you should consider before you move home. Now, if you are a subscriber to the Money to the Masses YouTube channel, you may know already that I have recently purchased my first property. So I want to be sharing 5 things that helped me when I was moving house and that you should consider too, just to try and make the move-in process a bit easier, a bit smoother, and to also hopefully save you some money along the way. So number 1 is when you are going through the house buying process, if you get a purchase contract, you will also probably be provided with the fittings and contents form, which documents all of the things that the sellers will be leaving or taking with them when they leave the property. So for example, our sellers, when we received our contents form, we found out that they were taking all of the appliances, including the cooker. So we knew that as soon as we moved in, we wouldn't have any means of cooking any meals, and that is something that we would need to purchase when moving into the property. We were also notified that they were taking absolutely everything with them, including the curtain rails, the curtain poles, and we would also need to purchase obviously blinds and curtains when we moved into the property, which is usually expected when moving into a new home. But this is something that allowed us to budget for, knowing that we would need to purchase ways to cook and a cooker when we moved into our property. And there are loads of ways to be able to get something secondhand on websites such as eBay and Facebook Marketplace when you're moving for the first time. You may not want to pay out, particularly if you're looking like we were to get our kitchen done fairly early on in the process of being in our new home. Now, number 2 is to declutter and sell any items that you don't want or need. Now, when we were packing away our stuff and getting ready to move, we obviously had accommodated a lot of belongings that we didn't necessarily need. And it was a good time to declutter and get rid of those things, and also try and make a bit of money by selling those on as well. Particularly if you have pieces of furniture or items of clothing or shoes in fairly good condition, it's quite easy to be able to then sell them on those sites such as eBay and Facebook Marketplace to be able to get a bit of extra cash, which can then go towards those things that you may need to purchase when you move into your property. It's also a really good idea to try and declutter before you move, because then you don't have to take it all with you to your new home. Now, number 3 is to make a list of things that you will need to do when you are moving. Now, when I was moving out of my parents' house, so I didn't have to make a list of changing over from utility companies, but I did make a list of all the things I would need to do when I move into the property, such as set up accounts with the utility companies, and to also set up council tax accounts, and to also set up accounts for paying things like a TV license. Now, I made a note of all these things so that when I moved and got caught up in all of the stresses of moving, that there wasn't things that slipped through the net that I forgot about. Because also it's quite important to try and do these and remember these things early on, because you don't want to get a few months down the line and then be hit with a fairly hefty bill because you forgot to set up an account in the first place. You will also need to make a list of all of the bank accounts and all the credit agencies that you may have an account with. You will need to notify them of your change of address, and it's also a really good time to fill out a post redirection form with someone such as Royal Mail, so that you don't miss any important letters which may go to your old address if you don't redirect them to your new address. Now, number 4 is quite an important one, and that is to budget for all of your bills ahead of time. Now, as I said earlier, I made a list of all the things that I would need to pay, change over when I was moving into our new property. So I also made a list of all the things I would need to set up and how much I could expect to pay for these, so that I knew that when we moved into our property, I could work this into my budget and I knew exactly how much I was expected to pay. Now, one key thing to budget for ahead of time, and I wish that I had done this when I was moving. I had planned to do it, but in the end, by the time we were moving, it went quite quickly. It's quite a hard thing to be able to do, but as long as you're prepared to pay your first mortgage payment. Now, some people may not know this, but most people may know that your first mortgage payment is likely to be more expensive than what you're going to be paying monthly. And this was the case for us. So our first mortgage payment, we moved in on the 20th of the month, and our first mortgage payment was coming out the 1st of the following month. So for us, that was only a period of 12 days from moving in and then when our mortgage payment was coming out. And this was at £250 more than what we were expecting to pay for our mortgage payment. So this was a hefty amount of money that we were expected to pay as soon as we moved in. And moving is an expensive time. You need to buy things for your property that you don't have. And so this was something that I wish I had budgeted for or catered for or put a bit of money away so that it wasn't such a large chunk of my salary as soon as we moved in. Now, finally, another thing to consider is when you move in, it is expensive and you may need to purchase things like appliances. This was something that we needed to do because, as I mentioned previously, our seller was taking all of their appliances. So we knew we was going to need to purchase a cooker, we needed to purchase a washing machine and a tumble dryer because these were not things that we had previously because we were moving out of our parents' house. Now, this is obviously an expensive time, and if you haven't had the opportunity to budget for this because you've been saving for your deposit, then you may need to put this on a credit card or take out a loan. But one thing to consider before moving is that if you want to apply for credit in your new property, then you could potentially get rejected if you apply in the first few months that you're in your property. This is because it can take a little while for your credit report to update with your change of address. So when you go to apply, the loan or credit company is going to look at your credit report for an identity check, and they will look to see if your address matches up with where you say you are living. If this hasn't yet updated, then it is likely that you could get rejected for credit, which would then obviously negatively impact your credit score, and this could then affect your ability to get credit later in the future. So it's definitely something to consider if you are looking to borrow money once you have changed address. So that's it for this week's Millennial Money video. If you have any questions, email me, lauren@moneytothemasses.com, and also go and have a look at my house buying journey to see the highs and lows of buying a property in the past year and to see all of the challenges that we overcame buying our house for the first time. So that's it for today. Also go and follow us over on our social media. So our Facebook, Money to the Masses, our Instagram @Money to the Masses, and our Twitter @Money to the Masses with the number 2. Thanks for watching.